So my name is Zechariah, and my dad's name is Baruch. And we're from Naphtali. Well, yeah, I know it's one of the smaller tribes, but, there's no shame in that. My dad always said, you can't change your lineage, but you can always change your character. And I like that. My family's from up north of the Sea of Galilee, a little bit south of Hazor, up there in the hills. And we keep sheep, like most of our neighbors, and we also do a little fishing. That's what I do for a living, in fact. Kind of. My dad's got a special recipe for smoking fish, and it's better than anybody else's around. So that's what takes me to Jerusalem regularly. I market his fish for him. In terms of hobbies, I like music, and I play the kinnor. And I'm pretty good at it, actually, and I like to sing. And got a pretty good voice, too, I think. At least that's what my mom tells me. And I'm also kind of a poet. And one of my favorite things to do, though, is to get together with my friends in one of our homes and play music together and sing and worship the Lord. That's just one of my favorite things I like to do any night of the week. I do like worshiping at the tabernacle, though, in Jerusalem. It's not always convenient going up to Jerusalem during the festivals, but it's always good to go. And I always like it when the priests pronounce their blessing on the people. And it's such good poetry, what they say, but it's also weighty, but at the same time it's really hopeful. I love it when those priests at the end of the service, they'll stand up and they'll raise their hands and they'll go, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord turn His face toward you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you His peace." I love that. And I love that Yahweh, the Lord, gave that to the priests so they could pronounce it on the people. I love that. The blessings, Barach, that the priests speak over the people at the tabernacle. The Lord has a heart for people. Yeah. I wrote a poem a few months ago. And it was a week or two before Passover. And I actually put it to music too. So it's a song. I borrowed some words from the priestly blessing in my poem. I hope that's okay. But it's what I did. Can I share that with you? I wrote it down in my journal. I wrote this. May God be gracious to us and bless us. Don't accuse me of plagiarism, please. May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make His face shine upon us. May your ways be known on earth, your salvation among the nations. May the people praise you, O God. May all the peoples praise you. May the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you rule the peoples justly and guide the nations of the earth. May the peoples praise you, O God. May all the peoples praise you. Then the land will yield its harvest, and God, our God, will bless us. God will bless us, and all the ends of the earth will fear Him. I think that's pretty good. If I don't say so myself. I like it, and so do my friend. My friend Joel likes it. And that's significant because Joel's cousin Heman is one of the king's musicians in Jerusalem. And this kind of feels like bragging to me, so if you'll excuse me, please. But during Passover, Joel and I and his cousin Heman got together just to make some music and to sing and to worship the Lord. Well, I was kind of intimidated because Heman was, a professional. But we sang my song anyway, and Heman loved it. And he loved it so much that he took it to his fellow musicians and played it for them, and now they're using it at the tabernacle for worship. In fact, Heman said it's likely that it's going to be approved to be included in the Psalter and actually become an official worship song of the people of God. Man, my mom and my dad are pretty proud. I'm a grown man, but that still matters to me. Interesting thing, though. Not everybody likes my song. In fact, Heman said it almost didn't get approved by the Musicians Guild for worship. He said some of the musicians, or was it the priests? I can't remember. Oh well, some of the people there in Jerusalem, they think that my song has too broad of a blessing. That it seems to inappropriately extend God's blessing. Too broad of a blessing? I think I understand their thinking, but I don't agree with it. Can I tell you a story from my childhood? I'm not proud of it, and I'm not a hero of this story by any stretch, but it's really significant and was kind of a turning point in my life, so I'd like to share it with you. I was 9 years old at the time, and I was just living the life of a boy up in the hills, up in Naphtali, south of Hazor, doing what boys do. I looked after animals. I did my chores. I fought with my brothers and my sisters. And I learned how to read and write. I was just kind of a normal Jewish kid from Naphtali. Now, our neighbors, and this is significant, our neighbors weren't all Jewish. Some of them were foreigners. We had some Ammonites around, some Philistine families, even some Canaanites. And one day, one of the neighbor kids, I think he might have been a Canaanite, but he came over and he wanted to play ball with us, with me and my friends. And one of my friends called him a name. And I hadn't heard that word before, but you could tell that it hurt the boy's feelings and that he knew what that name meant. And he left just looking kind of sad and without saying anything. And it made me feel kind of bad. And that night, when my dad was tucking me into bed, remember I was 9 years old, and my dad was tucking me in bed, and I told him about what happened. And at first my dad didn't say anything. He just looked at me and he was kind of quiet. And my dad looked kind of sad. And then he told me what the word meant. And then he said it was derogatory. And that was the first time I'd heard that word too. And he explained why we didn't use that word in our family. It was sad. It was a sad day, but it was kind of a special time between me and my dad. Then Dad told me some things that I'd never heard before. Dad told me that King David, may the Lord bless his reign, that King David's great-grandmother Ruth was not even a Jew. That she was from Moabite. She was a Moabitess. And then, Dad told me, hadn't heard this before, that King David's great-great-grandmother Rahab was a Canaanite. And she was a harlot. But I didn't know what that meant. I think it had something to do with sewing. And then Dad told me about the promise that God made Abraham. My dad took out a copy of Torah. It wasn't the sacred scrolls because only the priests have those. But my dad had a copy that his dad had given to him. And Dad read from Torah, from the word of the Lord, where God made a promise to Abraham. And this is what my dad read to me that night from Torah, where God said to Abraham, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. This is the word of the Lord. And my dad said, Toby, I don't know where we got that name. Toby. It has nothing to do with my name, but it's just my dad's special name for me, and it's just between us, so he used my name. He says, Toby, you are a descendant of Abraham, and you should never be ashamed of that. And then he said something kind of surprised me. He said, and you should never be too proud of that. I'm just telling you what my dad said to me. He said, Toby, I love you, and I am so glad you're my son. He said, but the thing that will make me, your mother and me, happy is that you walk with the Lord. Is that you love God with all your heart, and that you follow Him for the rest of your life. And Toby, he wasn't quite finished yet. He said, Abraham was blessed so he could be a blessing to all the peoples of the earth. God's heart, God's plan for all the peoples of the earth is that they live under His blessing. Then we prayed together and I went to sleep. Things weren't quite the same after that night with my dad. I grew up that night somehow. My eyes were opened somehow to see people in a different way that night. God was somehow different than He had been before that. He was somehow bigger. He was somehow more loving and gracious than I really understood Him to be before. That was almost 20 years ago. I'm a man now. I sell smoked fish for a living, and I serve the living God. And I see people, regardless of their from, regardless of their ethnic background, I see people as people that the Lord wants to bless. And that song that I wrote, it came from my pen, but it also came from my heart. I am an unashamed descendant of Abraham, a child of Israel. I am grateful for that. But I understand that as a child of Abraham, that God's heart is for all nations. And I understand that God wants all peoples of the earth to know Him and to be blessed by Him. And I understand that I, Zechariah, son of Baruch, of the tribe of Naphtali, that I am blessed in order to be a blessing. Lord, let the light of the world shine on us. Lord, let the light of the world shine on us, that we may be saved.